I think I tried testing this houseplant a little bit too much.
And let me just show you just how long. Like, look at this. I have a couple really long vines. Whoa! I lost so many leaves. So here's what my Crimson Princess looks like now. Oh, I'm so proud of her. Half of it got rotted. Do you want to know why? I'm no stranger to recording my plant fails. I actually like having a place right here where I can go back and check on it, and at the same time I could share it with you. I try my best not to present my collection as a perfect one. I like sharing my fails with you, not because it brings me joy, but because I just feel like it brings a measure of transparency and it helps you to see what my collection genuinely looks like at any given time. So sometimes plants will be dusty and sometimes the reservoirs will be scuzzy, according to one comment. Sometimes they look that way, but that's how they honestly look, and I like to give you a true reflection of my collection. In today's video, I hope to be doing just that. I want to share with you plants that I failed at some point, plants that I messed up a few times, but I've been able to recover them and now they're doing a lot better. I want to share with you which plants those are, but more importantly, I want to share with you what I did to help these plants to recover. Okay, the first plant, I'm very excited to talk about this plant because this plant gave me so much grief. And I've recorded and have had my feels. I've shared them on YouTube here, and I'm so excited that this plant is doing much better. It is my Alocasia, I almost said Anthurium, Heuchkeliana. I've had this plant, oh, I can't quite remember. I think almost a year, actually, yes. May actually. So this month is a year that I've had it. I actually got it as 2 little corms from my mom, maybe 3. And let's jump to the clip of when I did them wrong. It is not happy, and it could not be happy for a lot of reasons. Possibly not be happy because of the mixture. That's one of the things I do not like about leca. I feel like leca does not do well in self-watering pots. You need to submerge it. It needs to be in something else. And also I find leca is not very good at retaining moisture. I think leca is literally good at holding down the weight, holding down the plant in a pot. That's what I personally like leca for. This can work for pon, and I do have this happening successfully with my Hoya in pon in a self-watering setup. It works beautifully. The water is falling in. All right. So let's take a look at the roots. Evidently not happy. Rotting happening. Yeah, not happy. A lot of it. It's bigger on the inside than it looks. All right, so I'm going to put it in here. Now I'm going to put some, I probably should have put it a little bit deeper, but leave it. Let's see, it's fully covered because I don't want to put it in too deep. I want to have a substantial reservoir and I don't want to accidentally have the roots sitting in water. So let's see what it looks like currently. Just lost this leaf. This was a retired leaf and it's pushing out some new growth. Here, right here has some new growth right in the middle, and I probably should not. The experts would say don't repot while it's pushing out new growth. And you're probably right. I'm gonna do it anyway. Let's see. Either this vase or the other one that's sort of on a pedestal. What are your votes? This one or the pedestal? Let me know in the comments down below. A or B? Well, this plant is still relatively small. I will most likely chop off these here. B will be a little bit excessive. I think it'll just be a little too big and it's a little too deep. Here we are. I washed it out. What I would prefer to do is fill up the bottom with leca so that I can see the water levels, but I don't have a lot of leca. Or I can sprinkle some leca in between. I still get those big air pockets. I can see the water level between the pond and the leca. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Oh, very nice. Let me come over here so you can see. Look, we've got some baby corms. It's pushed down some fresh new roots. That's good. Oh, I don't want to tug the roots out and pull it out, rip them. But yay, so I do think it was coming along. There we go. we did have a little bit of rot. See, just a tiny little bit, because I couldn't see where the water reservoir ended, right? This was better, but not perfect, not the best. So hopefully this will be the best. This will be its ideal situation. And a lot of my other alocasia are performing beautifully. I think that's way too much in a setup like this, right? I think I want it to be a little bit deeper so that I can support the plant a little bit more. Pour in just a little bit more, because I want it to be deep enough so that the neck of the plant can get some support. Anyways, these corms, what do you think? Should I harvest them or leave them? I'll leave them. I'm hoping that you said that they'll sprout. That is what you said, right? Because that's why I'm leaving them. I left just a little glimpse of the roots on the sides, so I know where my reservoir should end. And I just want it just below the roots. Perfect. Yeah, we have some old roots here. I think this should be enough. Yeah. Just trying to hold. Yeah, there we go. That holds it up a lot better. This is not something that I do very often. Most times I will find the clipper to clip it with. I'm just gonna snap it here, snap and snap. And voila, we have a very sad looking alocasia. I know, it looks so much better than it did before. You would have seen what I did wrong. I put them in a no drainage vessel, okay, but I couldn't see through the vessel. And I think that is actually one of my biggest mistakes, that, if not the biggest mistake, yes, the mistake that I made with that plant. Alocasia love to stay hydrated. They love to not dry out. And I actually will give all my favorite alocasia tips in an alocasia collection video. That video is already out on my channel. It probably is the last video to appear, and that's gonna capture all of my alocasia. So I'm gonna give all my favorite care tips when it comes to alocasia in that video. But this plant, I've noticed, is more difficult than the Frydek, so the variegated version. It does need a little bit of extra care and extra love. So what I did in that last clip you would have seen of previous Stephanie, I put it in this no drainage vessel in the fall of 2024. And since then, it's been doing much better as long as I stay on top of the watering. If I let this plant dry out, even if there's still water, a little bit of water in the reservoir, once it's not enough by its standards, it will start to like bow the leaves and get the little bit of yellowing on the edges. Also, if you catch it just in time, it might still bow, but it may not yellow. Like this one, I caught this one just in time before it started losing its mind. I've made a decision to stay on top of the watering for this plant, because I've seen how big and beautiful this plant can get. And so I want to get a nice big lush version of it. So I'm gonna work hard on that. It has 2 plants in there. I have a third one that I didn't realize, and it's somewhere else in my collection, but you're gonna see that in the alocasia collection video. I won't say too much because I would have said all that I need to say in the alocasia collection video. I'm proud of it, and I think it's going to do much better now, especially now we're going into summertime. This is the newest leaf. Look at that. Stunning. It's beautiful. If I could do it over, I would add leca entirely at the bottom and then put the pon on top. You can't really see because it's hidden in here among all of the algae that has grown, but that's what I think I would do in the future. I would put the leca to create a nice airy reservoir and then put the pon mixed with perlite up top. That's plant number 1. Okay, something I want to add is that I do have Hoya in this video. I know I have a lot of Hoya lovers on my channel, but I'm going to save all the Hoya and group them together for the ending of the video. So if you want to see those, hang in there. They're coming towards the end. Another plant that I've had for a long time, I've almost lost, but I've been able to recover it, is my Monstera Peru. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't look like any fabulous plant right now, but let me take you with me through the journey as I've had this plant. I probably made all the mistakes one can make with this plant, but let's take a look.
Down below here, this is my Monstera Peru. I did an experiment where I took this plant out of soil and I put it into water. It's not the happiest right now, but we will get through it. Again, be ugly. Like I'm sharing it all. So we will get through it. We will figure it out as we go. So yeah, it's just hair growing water. I do think it'll catch and it'll start growing again. I'm not worried about it. It's very tough.
Should I come on this side? Yeah, I have a Monstera Peru that I've put into, what's it called? Molly's aeroid potting mix, and then in a self-watering pot. I have maybe 2 or 3 plants in here. They were all in water, and one of them is doing really well, so it's growing up the vine. There's a vine here, and it has a new leaf coming out. So I plan on just wrapping it around and continuing it. Over here is my Monstera Peru. You may remember it from my trailing houseplants video. It used to live in a south facing window, and because of that, it got the craziest amounts of light, and it was way too much. This is the definition of a low to medium light trailing plant. Love the texture, just love how dark the leaves can get. Not a big fan of when the leaves start to look like this, when it's underwatered or gets too much light, but this is why I grow this plant. Beautiful. It's living in a self-watering pot in Molly's aeroid mix. It loves it very much. So you may have spotted it behind me. Yes, and behind me is actually not where my Alocasia Heuchkeliana lives. I just put it here for this video, but this is sort of my recovery wall. So plants that need a little bit of extra love and a little bit of extra light. This is where they are right now. So that top row is plants that I'm actively recovering. Just to give you a little bit of context about my background. The Monstera Peru, this plant is one that it can be tricky. It's a tricky plant. Let me tell you why. It's fussy, it's thirsty, but doesn't want to be overwatered. It needs a good deal of light to grow, or else it'll push runners, but then it burns easily. This one is a tricky one, certainly a diva. I've been struggling with this plant for a little while because it had and still has thrips on it, but it's not a crazy, terrible infestation. I just find one every once in a while, not even on new leaves, but I spray it at least once a week. If I wanted to get rid of thrips entirely on this, I will put beneficials, which are coming soon. I'm getting beneficials, but spraying it twice a week with horticultural oil, it will take care of that, but you need to do it for at least a month if you want to really take care of thrips. This plant is tricky for the reasons that I've mentioned, and it rots so easily. I had it for a long time in my south facing window during the winter. The plant burned. Seriously, in a south facing window in winter. I know that in winter, a south facing window will get a high amount of light, but still the intensity of the light isn't as bad as summer, but still, it burnt in direct light in winter time. My conclusions, what I've learned from this plant is that it does need a good amount of light. This is a solid medium light lover. I know we say bright indirect light. This plant is the definition of bright indirect light. I feel like there's a lot of plants who get the bright indirect light label that can totally handle direct light and can totally handle lower light. This is a medium light lover. Yes, it's in a self-watering pot. When I let this reservoir dry out, we have a very unhappy camper here. I took it out of that window a couple weeks ago. I chopped off a bunch of the runners because it had a lot of them. And I also noticed some of it had thrips, so I chopped off a lot of it. And this is where we are now. It's doing much better. It's growing in Molly's aeroid mix. And this or semi-hydro would be the substrates for this plant. And I know these are very opposite substrates, but I feel like, not opposite, but they're very different substrates. But the reason I say that is because Molly's aeroid mix is the perfect coddling substrate. It is very good at babying plants that want to be babied. Plants that are very iffy, very picky, You know, you put a little bit too much of this ingredient in the substrate and it's not happy. It doesn't like it. Molly's just has the perfect amount of all the ingredients, the perfect ratios that I notice make my tricky plants happy. So that's why I think that's a great substrate to use for this plant. But again, I think Molly's Arid Mix is from Very Plants. I think it's Canadian, I'm not sure. But if you're in the US, another substrate I would try with this plant, or anywhere that maybe doesn't have access to Molly's, or something that works just as good, is semi-hydro. The reason I say that this plant would grow well in semi-hydro, I grew this plant very nicely in pure water for a long time. It grew the most beautiful foliage. It was extremely happy. I took it out of the water because, like I've mentioned in some of my previous videos, after a while, especially during the winter when the temperature in the house, even if our house is heated, but it's winter, it's still going to feel a measure of chill. And so when the water temperature goes down, I notice all of my plants in water start to suffer. And semi-hydro is a sweet spot where the roots aren't sitting in water, but still able to wick up water. And so I think semi-hydro is a great alternative. If I had to restart this plant, or if for some reason I lost it and I got another one, I would definitely grow that one in semi-hydro. That's a lot, but I just wanted to share all of my knowledge about this plant. Definitely a plant that is tricky, but worth it. I love the boulate leaves and I hope to always have one in my collection. Oh, finally, we're getting some sunlight. I don't think I've said it yet, but this is actually my third time recording this video. We power on. So the third plant I want to talk about is a philodendron. This is a plant that I think I've heard one other content creator mentioned that this plant was hard for them, and I felt very validated when they said that. Mine is still small, don't get me wrong. Like, mine is not some big lush one. The plant I'm talking about is my Philodendron Florida Beauty. Yeah, I feel like I'm forgetting a word. My Philodendron Florida Ghost, not Beauty. This plant is one that I got even smaller than this. It was so tiny when I got it. Let me take you back in time. Let's see if I can find any footage of when I started with this plant. This is my Philodendron Florida Ghost. And I'm not gonna lie, it hasn't been growing in the most impressive way. And it could be because of how it has been planted, because I believe when I repotted this in a rush, when I did a few weeks ago, I didn't pot it deeply enough. So I just need to quickly take it out and put it back in. You know, this is what happens when you put your plants in too shallow. Yeah, and I actually would love for this to be in a self-watering pot. It's so tiny and it's going to be very easy to overwater. Philodendron tend to grow quite quickly, and I just will end up repotting this way too soon. I'm going to put my very good mixture that I used for this in this bag. I'm using this bag to pour it out in because I want to reuse it. This is actually Molly's Arid Mix once again, and I don't want to waste it. See, look at how tiny this is. Look at how tiny the root system is on this. So tiny. I think I just might as well put it in here, shouldn't I? Anything bigger and it's going to be rotted, which looks like it probably already started happening. So yeah, it's going to go in one of these tiny self-watering pots. So I'm just going to put a little bit at the bottom here. The wick is in. I'm going to put it in. I know in about a few months I'm going to have to repot. And you can see this leaf here, this dark green one is the newest. Is it yes, it looks like the newest leaf. I will just show you instead of continuing to pull it away from you. So that's one of the newest leaves. So cute. All right, so this is where the plant is now. I've had this plant, I think maybe a year now, and it hasn't done a whole lot. It is not the fastest growing of my philodendron, which is funny because the Philodendron Florida Beauty, which is, I want to say it's more variegated than this, but it's deceivingly more variegated. But it's not. This one is actually more variegated because if you look at it, the leaves come out all white. They're completely white, and then they harden off to this minty green color. And so the trick for me in the beginning was finding that balance of giving it lots of light without burning it. And so it lived in a west facing window, which is great because it gets a lot of light, but it gets harsh light. So I pulled it off the side of the west facing window. But last summer, it was such a rainy summer that we weren't getting enough hours of sunlight to help this plant to thrive. So of course we're getting lots of hours of sunlight, but no clear skies. That's what I'm trying to say. Not enough intense light. Again, not to hit the leaves, but there's a difference in intensity and if there's cloud cover versus clear skies. Because of that, it makes it hard for the plant, or it takes longer, I should say, for the plant to create food, to photosynthesize, and to grow. The trick, the very simple trick that this plant needs, what I've learned is that it needs very high light. Now, I've talked about bright indirect light for the Monstera Peru, but this plant cannot handle direct light. The leaves will melt off and will burn very, very easily. So you need to be able to give this plant very bright light, but by no means let the light touch the leaves. So grow lights is a great way to grow this plant. So mine grows under Barina lights. Sansi, and you know how much I love Sansi, especially for Hoya, but Sansi gets really hot. And because of that, it burns the leaves very easily. Like this part of the plant, it touched the Sansi light and it just melted that part of the leaf off. The leaves are super delicate. They're soft, they're thin, so they can't handle too much harsh light, but they need as much light as possible. This is growing in Molly's aeroid mix in a self-watering pot. Like I said, like this mix is mwah, for finicky plants that want you to spoon feed them. They want to stay hydrated and not dry out, but not too wet. This is the perfect mix for that. And so yeah, it's growing really well. And because it's such a slow grower, it sometimes will not use up all the water in the reservoir, and then I will have to refresh it, and then sometimes it will just dry out super fast. I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually root bound in here and needs to be repotted, but I would want to repot it in Molly's, but I don't see myself buying Molly's anytime soon, so I'm trying to muster up the courage to repot it and then put it into my own mix, which is hit or miss for this plant. That's this one. I really love it. I definitely will keep it. It's beautiful. It's unique. Pushing out a new leaf here. It had done nothing for a little while, a couple of weeks, and then it suddenly pushed out this sweetheart here. So I'm excited about it. The next plant on the list is one that I have previously mentioned to you. I have told you in the past that I have struggled with this plant, and it's actually a comeback. Probably one of the biggest comebacks in my collection, and it's right here. It's my Philodendron Brazil.
This is a Philodendron Brazil. From other people, I've seen that, you know, this houseplant isn't difficult for them, but I think I tried testing this houseplant a little bit too much. Like I put it in darker areas and it didn't quite like it. I know many people have said this plant can tolerate lower light. Yeah, but it didn't like where I put it. So these are a bunch of propagations that I've put into soil. I actually tried growing this plant in water. It did not like it. And I put it into soil and it's recovering. So it's doing a lot better now. I know I have some sad leaves down below, but that's okay. It's looking a lot better than it looked a few weeks ago. So I'm happy about that. Again, I'm not perfect at caring for houseplants. I actually like to experiment as I go and try different things. So yeah.
Let me take it down. Don't break it. Let me tell you, I have so much fear of this plant getting thrips. You would not believe how scared I am. Ah! And as I say that, I see a thrip walking on it. Oh, no. It doesn't have any like major damage. It's, again, I just have thrips lingering in my collection. It's definitely not overtaking. They're really trying. It's sort of this back and forth I have with thrips right now. Like I am just keeping them at bay. They're trying to explode and I'm just like, don't you dare. Yeah, that was the only one I saw. How long have I had this plant? That's a great question. I think just maybe a year and a half. Just about a year and a half. I got it just as I was starting my YouTube channel, maybe a couple months after I started it. And it was the tiniest, little thing. It was so very tiny. And I went through a phase where I was putting all of my houseplants in water. Well, not all, I was putting a lot of my houseplants in water. And this is one of them that really and truly loathed it with an intense passion. And as soon as I put it back into soil, as soon as I just got a pot and I'm just like, okay, well, whatever, let's just put you back into soil. As soon as I did that, it just came right back. And this plant, again, it shouldn't be difficult. I think it's one of those plants just like, ooh, there's another plant I want to mention. Just like there are a few plants in my collection that are like that. When they're juvenile, they're fussy. When they're small baby plants, they're losing leaves easily. They complain quite a bit. But then as they mature and they sort of find their footing, they do much better. And so this is one of those plants. And let me just show you just how long. Like, look at this. I have a couple really long vines. There we go. There we go. It in its entirety. I have been sticking a lot of the vines back in here, but I think we're pretty much root bound. I just watered this morning and it is not even that heavy. So it means that there are a lot of roots in here that are thirsty. And so it probably needs to be repotted sometime soon, but I'm not in a rush because I also think this plant doesn't like to be repotted from my memory. The plant is growing in sort of, yeah, in my DIY soil mix. So this is actually soil with some chunks of coconut husk, extra perlite, just me fluffing up a soil mix. Sorry. This plant, it doesn't need high light. Definitely you don't need to have direct light hitting this plant. The thing about this plant, I think, is it needs consistent light. Don't do well, especially when they're juvenile. I had this plant growing for a very long time in grow lights, and now that it's mature and fully established, looking gorgeous, I decided to put it up in this corner. This is a south window right here. It gets no direct light from there, but also there's a grow light at the top there, but it's pointing on the plants on this shelf, but I'm sure it gets a little bit of light from it because I've got some new growth coming in at the top here. But anyways, that's my takeaways. That's what I have to share about this plant. If you're struggling, try with consistent light. Water when it's almost dry. Don't let it fully dry. Don't let it look weak and limp. I don't think any plant wants to be completely dry. This one can handle going almost there. Philodendron, also quite resilient, a resilient genus. It would recover quite nicely, but it's so happy here. It's so happy. I hope it could stay here pest-free. I should be getting some beneficials soon and I'm gonna stick one right in. All right, so I think that's it for all of my non-Hoya plants. I think I had 5 non-Hoyas and I think I've covered them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I've done it. I've covered all of my non-Hoya. Now let's get into my Hoya. The first plant is one that's a little bit of a cheat in how I got it to grow well for me. I can't take all the credit. I'm talking about my Hoya Carnosa Crimson Princess. Let me show you how it all began. Actually, not when it all began, when it started going south. And we will begin with this Hoya Crimson Princess. I got this a few, maybe months ago, maybe 2 months ago, if so much. It could also be a tricolor. I'm not completely sure. It's one that I got relatively recently. I have not had it for years and years, but it seems like I haven't quite perfected it yet because either the plant is experiencing stress because of the repot, or it could be that it's not enjoying this mixture. It just doesn't look good. So I'm just going to take it out of here and take a look at the roots. And wow, I lost, is that a leaf? Yep. Whoa! I lost so many leaves. Oh my goodness, the plant was dying. I waited way too long to go at this. Look at how many leaves I lost in here. Look at how many leaves are in here. Oh no. This is worse than I expected. So many casualties. This was an actual plant. I lost this completely. Oh no. So let's see what happened here. I don't want to say, is it rot? Yep. So I have some root rot, like roots just falling off here. So, but I also have some new roots. Like you could see a little bit of white at all, but there's a little bit of white root here. So it might have tried to restart itself, but yeah, not good. But I think I'm just gonna pop it in here. I love Molly's mix. I trust it a lot. I've had a lot of really great success. Pulled the wick up a little bit. I don't want the wick to touch the roots, but I don't want the wick to be only at the bottom. So this much is in there. I'm going to, please don't lose any more leaves. The lesson is if you see your plant, signs that your plant is not doing well, it's not growing, you know, it's looking limp, especially with Hoya, the leaves are getting soft, they're not firm. Like, see how soft this is? I shouldn't be able to bend this so easily. Immediately do something. I dragged my feet and yeah, the plant suffered. So don't do that. Wow, that was dramatic. So here's what my Crimson Princess looks like now. I'm so proud of her. She looks so good. This plant is a tricky one. And it's funny because in all of my research, all of the videos that I watch, even if I make a lot of content, I also watch a lot of YouTube plant content. I only remember one time, or maybe in a comment someone left me in a video, someone saying that the Carnosa Crimson Princess is actually much more difficult than the Crimson Queen. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how much harder can it really be? It's a Carnosa, and the Crimson Queen is one of the easiest. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, significantly more variegation than the Crimson Queen. Like, come on, like a high percentage of these leaves are variegated leaves. A high percentage of the coverage of the leaf itself is variegated. There's not a whole lot of green. The first plant that I got, I lost maybe 50% of that plant, rotted. Half of it got rotted. And do you want to know why? It's because I had it growing in a window. It wasn't giving enough light. Like I said before, sometimes we go through pockets. We go through periods of time where it's just gray for many days. And this plant will become easily overwatered if it doesn't have enough light. Even in the best mix ever, it will still become overwatered without enough light. Putting it in a south window, it did better, but then as we were going into winter and fall, or fall and winter, I was like, no, I'm not risking this. I put it under my Barina grow light, and let me tell you, it exploded under the Barina grow light. It was so happy, it did so well, and I grew it there, I think for most of the winter. It was there for a long time. And recently as in maybe 2 months ago, I decided when we started getting into longer days and it was becoming more sunny, I decided to put it back into my south facing window. It's not growing as quickly as it did under the Barina grow light, but it's still doing well. It's still doing well. And since we're getting into even more sunny days, still we're not doing great, but better. We're getting some new growth coming in here. It did nothing for a little while and now it's starting to kick back into gear again. I just love these beautiful sun-stressed leaves that it gets when it's getting direct sunlight, high amounts of light even, and it's just so happy. Yeah, again, in self-watering, not a plant that I would play with, like let it dry out. No, it's a plant you want to stay on top of. And another thing I did, a cheat I did, which I actually forgot to mention, is that I actually just stuck another plant in. I bought a second plant. So I bought this plant twice, and I just added it in here. That's what I did. And sometimes that's what you got to do. You just got to start over or fix half of the problem with a new plant. As you can imagine, it really gives it a fuller look. I love that full look, and it's curling in on itself because it's trying to get as much light as possible. But yeah, that's this plant. It has a green vine and you could see the difference. The all green vine is just going like crazy. I've actually cut this vine before and look at this. Crazy. I need to cut it again. So now we're going to go into some of my smaller Hoya, my baby Hoya, and we're going to go through these a lot faster. Next, we're going to talk about my Hoya. I've talked about this plant a lot on my channel, the Hoya Rebecca. And let me show you, like the last time I talked about this plant negatively, which was in my hard Hoya video. I'm just going to run a quick clip so you can have some. Is the Hoya Rebecca. Yes, this plant and we have been through the ups and downs. It is delicate. It is quite delicate. I purchased it at a rare plant shop, and I have had it, I think, since the spring, early spring, maybe late winter. I got it, and it is a plant that is supposed to sun stress beautifully. But for me, this Rebecca does not want to sun stress. It will burn before it sun stresses. It is extremely sensitive to being repotted. Even when I try my very best not to touch the roots, it is still quite sensitive. It could be my care. It just looks like it should be an easy Hoya. It's not variegated. It's all green. I just feel like it should be so much easier, but for me, it is not. When it's unhappy, it drops new leaves very quickly, very easily. I repotted it recently. I think maybe in the last video you would have seen on this channel, I repotted it and it dropped two of its baby leaves. Three of his baby leaves. I didn't even touch the roots. If you look at it carefully, you'd see I didn't touch the roots at all. I literally went, I took it out and just popped it in a new medium in this self-watering pot. But it's still growing. It still has some new growth coming in here at the edges. It's still vining, it's still doing its thing, but it's a little bit of a slower growing Hoya. I'm surprised that this plant is as tricky as it is. All right, so this is what my Hoya Rebecca looks like now. Again, it's not blowing up like, well, actually it is kind of doing a whole lot better than it did before, but it is doing way better. I think this is the biggest that I've ever had this plant. Like the biggest it has ever been. And it's growing funny because it's sitting on a shelf. I probably should find somewhere to put it so that it can grow happily downward, but it's sitting on a shelf. So that's why the leaves are sort of turning towards the light, like it grows like this on the shelf. Anyways, it is doing so good. It's growing much faster than ever before. I have it growing in pond, in a self-watering pot. Like, look at those happy, juicy roots. I think the last time it went south for me, I let it dry out too much. Well, I think it was in Molly's arid mix, and I let it dry out too much. So it literally dry rotted on me, which was, again, was my fault. So I chopped it up and restarted it in water. I just propagated it, and it actually recovered and bounced back quite quickly in only a few months, I would say. Like, it didn't take that long for it to root up. This is another plant that will perform best for you in a good, consistent light. And that's a theme with Hoya. Hoya love light. They love direct light. They are greedy light lovers. They soak it all in. I know some Hoya, not all Hoya, but I've noticed the vast majority of Hoya that I have, they want all the light possible. And when you do that, it will grow, they will grow so nicely for you. But especially this Hoya, this one has been tricky for me. I do find the roots to be a little bit more delicate, a little bit more fine. It rots easily. So definitely one that I think you want to keep in semi-hydro. I wouldn't want to put it in a chunky mix. Been there, done that, failed. I think semi-hydro is the way to go. And this is the fastest and the best this plant has ever done for me. So definitely, I think semi-hydro is a win. I do think it's a thrip and pest magnet. I don't know if it's in my head, but I feel like the Hoya, the plant that I always will find something crawling on, or I suspect has flat mites, is always this plant. So I do think maybe it's a little bit of a pest magnet, or it could be that this plant was struggling and so it attracted pests because it was weak already. It's doing way better and I'm very proud of it. And I think I'm starting to love it. And I might even like it a little bit more than my Hoya Sunrise. I don't know. The Hoya Sunrise has bigger leaves, and which is crazy. I love bigger leaves. These are super cute. It's funny, I was so underwhelmed by this plant when I first got it, but I don't know. I really like it now. I love that the new leaves are so light green. It's almost like, look, you've got new leaves. Hey, like a gift. So you can tell that they're new. Right. And the last plant that I have to show you is one that I've restarted only a gajillion times. And that is my Hoya Bella. And this plant, whether it's the Hoya Bella inner variegated, outer variegated, or just the all green, I find myself restarting the Hoya Bella so much and so often. And with this one, I think I had to restart it because I kept knocking it over. There's something about it. It's just so light. And then when it pushes out the branches, it topples over so easily, and then it gets disrupted in the pond. I have mine growing in pond, and then I just find myself having to restart it super often. It's definitely a Hoya I think prefers, not prefers, it grows best for me under grow lights because, like I said, this one, so much variegation. The leader buoy, I think it is, the inner variegated, so much variegation. It really needs, it needs that extra help. And this one right here is the outer variegated. I just decided to put them both in one pot. I think the leader buoy was really long and I was about to cut it. Oh, it was part of my shelf debacle where the shelf fell on it and it broke, remember? And I was gonna chop it up anyways, but still I didn't want I didn't need the shelf to break it. But yeah, it's doing much better. The part that I put in here, this piece that I put in seems to be doing okay. It's trying to push out new growth, but it's probably way too tiny for you to see. Like, you can't really see it. It's just way too small. But we have finally some nice new growth coming here, coming out of there, coming over here. And I noticed it started doing that when I put it under my Scentsy grow lights. I think this plant loves, if I put it under my Barina, it has to be right up under my Barina, like really right up under it, or it likes just the intensity of a Scentsy grow light. But it is beautiful. There's something about this vine here that is just so, I know, in person, it looks so much better in person. On camera, it's not, I don't know if the camera is capturing it, but it looks so shiny and so pretty. I just find myself glancing at it every single time I go in the area this plant is in. But anyways, and that's it for today's video. These are some, not all, of the plants that were struggling and I think have made a full recovery. I say not all because some are still on their way. They're almost there, but I want to observe them a little bit more just to make sure that they're completely out of the woods before I include them in a video like this. And I want to be able to be confident in the findings that I share. These are the plants that are doing much better. Let me know your plant tips for me. If you have any of these plants and they are thriving for you, tell us down below. Tell me please as well what works for you, what tips you have for me, some of the best plant advice I get in my comment section. So please share them with us down below. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate the time you take to watch my content, and I will see you in the next one.